I was shocked at how bad things were. The building had a probability, which you might say was 50-50, of falling down completely, breaking off in the middle of the building and going kaput with a storm that could come statistically once every 16 years. 16 years. I'm only 52. It means in my lifetime, this building could fall over. Certainly, I was sufficiently convinced in my numbers that it sooner or later was bound to.
That was the point he told me of the flaw in the building. Well, I can tell you I was a bit shocked. I'm not sure that the seriousness of it penetrated all the way at that moment.
Bill described the issues, the problem, the potential for the building literally failing. It's probably the scariest moment of my entire life.
The architect and the engineer now had to inform the chairman of Citicorp, Walter Wriston, that the $175 million symbol of company pride, already nicknamed Walter's Whistle, was fatally flawed.
Wriston was stoic about it and behaved extremely well. And it took a big load off of my mind to have that kind of reaction, because they were being supportive. They are not blaming anybody, they were being very supportive, and we decided right then and there that we had to do something and do it immediately.
I said, I need your help. There's something very seriously wrong with this building, which is fixable. But it has to be done. We've got to move fast. The hurricane season is coming. This is the beginning of August. And sometime in August and September, a big storm might come, and it might be the one that would do us in. So we got to start at once. There were two sets of data from the wind tunnel. One was if the wind was just blowing on this building as an ordinary building, but this wasn't an ordinary building because we had initiated in this building one of the remarkable innovations in tall building design by adding a system of machinery at the top which counteracts the motion of the building and therefore reduces the forces of the building and the amount it deflects. And it was really done for people's comfort. It wasn't done for the safety of the building. But nevertheless, I realized that it could help the safety of the building.
I talked to a vice president at Citicorp, Henry DeFore III, who was assigned to deal with pesky young journalism students like myself, and they brought me up to the roof. He gave me a tour to show me the tuned mass damper. What a thing. What a thing.
Right in that area here, you also have the TMD, which is the tuned mass damper, which is a 400-ton concrete block that during wind conditions elevates and maintains the sway of the building. Building sway in one way, the block will follow it, and so as the building sways back, that's where the dampening effect takes place. It doesn't actually counteract the sway of the building, because you would just snap the steel structures right in half if you did that.
It goes from one side, you hear going, and then it goes back to the other side, and then it just keeps going back and forth, back and forth. 2 years ago, we had a storm that was really, really bad. A lot of the places over here got flooded by the river, and a lot of the people left the building because the building was swaying a lot. The two-mast damper was running. I was up here. I was maintaining it, and it was so bad that we had the doors on the panel were swinging, and the doors were actually hitting me as I was controlling the TMD. And we also had puddles of water coming in from all the rain, and in the puddles we had waves. So that's how bad the building was swaying.
Lemessurier's hope that the damper might be considered as part of the building's protection against storm winds was dashed by the consultant engineer acting for Citicorp.
He said, I can't, as a matter of principle, count on those, so I have to take the point of view that we're relying only on the bolted joints. And therefore, if there is a crisis, and therefore we must have an evacuation plan for the area until we get it fixed.
A friend of mine had heard it from another friend of ours who worked at the Red Cross, that they had been involved in this incredible top-secret project to map out all the activities of people in Midtown Manhattan around the area of the Citicorp Tower. So they actually wanted to figure out how many people were on the ground around there to know how many they'd have to dig out.
Most of what we would do would be working hand in hand with government, with other agencies. There would be full public information, but not on this one. It was very clear right from the start that this was to be done confidentially, that it was being handled on the highest levels of industry and on the highest levels of government, and that our work was to be as confidential as possible.
The amazing thing now as I read back on these notes is the sort of stone-cold lies told by the bank. I asked Mr. DeFord about the presence and involvement of the Red Cross in this job. And he says, I don't know of any involvement whatsoever with the Red Cross. They did a survey of the streets around the... Doesn't ring a bell with me, he said.
Did was design what we were calling a marketing survey, and one of the Citicorp officials recruited members of his church to be recruits that we trained in the morning. We turned them loose with their clipboards, and they went door to door to these commercial high-rise residential buildings and cataloged it street by street, block by block. Working in this confidential environment at Citibank, they wanted to have as few people in the loop as possible, and if we were going to bring in our own staff, we'd probably have a need to tell them what they're doing.
Even as the evacuation plans were being made, articles were still appearing in the press praising the tower. In the words of one journalist, it was a structure of masterly invention. Only a handful of people knew that if it hadn't been for a single telephone call, it could also have become a devastating agent of destruction.
We had a sort of a disaster headquarters in the Waldorf Astoria. I think it was Frank Sinatra's apartment we were in. And I spent a lot of time there, along with this guy Robertson, who was the engineer for Citicorp.
By now, the National Weather Service at the Rockefeller Center was involved to provide constantly updated information on the wind situation, and in particular, the tropical storms which were already gathering in the Caribbean.